please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
Welcome back. You're still watching Power Breakfast on CNBC TV18. Well, back home on Dalal Street, key indices ended with gains of over 0.5%. The Nifty reclaimed the 11,000 mark, while the Sensex that gained around 196 points to close above 36,500. Mid-caps outperformed, rising in trade, closing above 2%, followed by the Nifty Bank that ended more than 1% in the green. Rima joins in this morning to tell us what the cues and news are for today. Rima.
Hi Ekta, good morning. Well, yesterday's the big move came on the back of a fall in crude oil prices, so that helped the Nifty reclaim that 11,000 mark. The positive feature of yesterday's trade was that the mid-caps, which were underperforming through last week, outperformed yesterday. So the mid-cap index, as you said, ended with gains of more than 2%. The advanced decline ratio was positive for the first time in nearly a week. The global cues are directionally positive, so no big rally came through in the Dow Jones or the S&P if you look at it in terms of closing basis, but the Nasdaq hit a record level, and even Netflix, which was poised to see a 13-14% drop, it did see that intraday, but it also saw a recovery and finally ended with a cut of only about 5%. One thing which aided the up move yesterday was Jerome Powell's assessment of the economy, which was read upbeat by the analysts, and he said that the Fed will continue to increase rates gradually. With respect to flows, same picture. The FIs continue to be sellers. 674 crores sold in the cash market. The DIs bought 840 crore. The monsoon session of the parliament begins today. Remember, the budget session was almost a washout, and now opposition parties are calling for a no confidence motion. So there is a likelihood that maybe not much work could be done in the monsoon session as well. All this is important because we are heading into the election season next year. In big earnings today from the Nifty pack, it's going to be UltraTech Cement. But that apart, you've got a Bandhan Bank, Mahindra CIE, Reliance Communication, JK Autos, JM Financial, HT Media, and a big day for mid-cap IT as well, when Mindtree, NIIT Technology, Mastech, and Saskin Communication declare numbers.
Okay, all right, Rima. So that's trade setup. You've already given us a few stocks to look at. Give us a few more.
Well, Z, the numbers came just towards the close of market trade, largely in line, a bit of a beat at the margin level. So margins at 31.9%, slightly better than margin expectations of 31.5%. Ad revenue growth at 18.6%, which was powered by the domestic ad revenue growth of 22.3%. The disappointment is that the international ad revenue growth was just muted at 2.1%. PSU banks, and I'll name 5 of them which will be in focus because the Finance Ministry has approved an infusion of 11,300 crore into these 5 banks. So PNB, Corporation Bank, Andhra Bank, Indian Overseas Bank, and Allahabad Bank. HDFC Limited will be in focus. One, because its subsidiary HDFC AMC will be looking to raise 2,800 crore. The IPO will open on the 25th of July. The pricing is out. And with that, HDFC Limited will be paring down a 4% stake and raising close to about 945 crores. Separately, HDFC Bank has raised 8,500 crore by issuing preferential shares to its parent company, HDFC. This is a part of HDFC Bank's plan to raise 24,000 crore rupees. IDBI Bank, on Monday, we had the LIC board give approval for LIC buying a majority stake in IDBI Bank. Yesterday, when the IDBI Bank board met, they decided to seek government's decision on the LIC stake buy of getting a 51% stake. In some numbers, Jindal Stainless, profit growth of more than 100%. For Tata Sponge, on expected lines, strong numbers. Margins have inched up by nearly 300 basis points. Profits higher by 50%. PNC Infratech, it's a concession agreement signed with NHAI for a project which costs 1,157 crore. For Kridhan Infra, it's an order win of 222 crore. And similarly, it's a fresh deal for TCS as well in the energy vertical. Back to you.
Okay, all right, Rima. Thanks very much for that. Time for a short break now. But up next, the stage is set for what promises to be a stormy monsoon session of Parliament.
Welcome back. You're watching Power Breakfast on CNBC TV18. Now, the stage is set for what promises to be a stormy monsoon session of Parliament starting today. Speaker Sumitra Mahajan met lawmakers across party lines last evening to seek their support for smooth functioning of the House. And that's not all. Prime Minister Narendra Modi also reached out to the opposition parties, seeking cooperation for smooth functioning. But former NDA ally, that's the TDP, has moved a no-confidence motion against the government, and the Congress has also threatened to do the same. Parikshit Luthra is here with what's on the agenda.
25 bills are going to be brought for consideration and passing in the monsoon session of Parliament. 18 new bills are going to be introduced. This includes the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code Amendment Bill, Fugitive Economic Offenders Bill 2018, Muslim Women's Bill or the Triple Talaq Bill, Transgender Persons Protection of Rights Bill, and also the contentious RTI amendment that the opposition and activists have been talking about, because they feel this is an attempt by the government to dilute provisions of the RTI Act 2005 and make it weaker. The Prime Minister on his part has tried to reach out to all opposition players, saying that the government will leave no stone unturned to make sure that all issues are discussed on the floor of the House. The Congress and other opposition players are having strategy meetings, and they are going to corner the government over the issue of lynchings, cow vigilantism, jobs, MSP, foreign policy, women's safety, reservation. In fact, the Congress and TDP have also promised to move no confidence motions in Parliament. This is to put pressure on the Narendra Modi government. They will not succeed as they don't have the numbers. But we can only hope that this monsoon session will be more productive than the budget session, which was the least productive budget session in 18 years. In fact, Parliament spent only 7% of its time on legislative business in the last session of Parliament. Let's hope things are better this time around.
Okay, thanks very much for that. Well, on to a CNBC TV18 exclusive now. The GST on sanitary napkins could be eased when the council meets on the 21st of this month. Sources tell CNBC TV18 rate revision of more products is also on the agenda. Timsi Jaipuria joins us with the exclusive details. Timsi, seems like a busy agenda for the next GST Council.
Well, it is going to be a power-packed GST Council meeting with a new chairman at the helm. This time, the Council is likely to discuss rate rationalization for some of the key items such as sanitary napkins, e-books, fertilizers, farm produce, handicrafts and handlooms. Remember, some states are of a view to shift sanitary napkins in the exempt category. The long-pending demand of hotel industry is also going to be considered by the GST Council. The Council will deliberate upon the proposal to levy GST on actual tariff and not on declared tariff for hotels. Council shall also come up with a clarification with respect to government services and treatment of lottery under the GST regime. On bringing in further ease in compliance, the Council will discuss the new simplified return form, which is key to give a breather to small taxpayers with a turnover less than 1.5 crores and composition dealers. A relief is also in offering for nil taxpayers, where under the new proposed form, they will have to fill only a one-page form. The Council is also likely to discuss and approve an annual return form, which will have much more details. On the other hand, the Council will leave it open for the members to take a call on how best to utilize the stuck funds in the IGST kitty. As of now, about 1.80 lakh crores worth of funds are lying idle in the IGST kitty. The GST Council will also take cognizance of three key GOM reports. Firstly, on incentivizing digital transactions. Secondly, on reverse charge mechanism. And thirdly, on reduction of GST on ethanol and a possibility to levy a sugar cess. Remember here, the GOM is waiting for an Attorney General's opinion before taking a view on whether to levy a cess or not. And on ethanol, the GM is of a view that the reduction of GST on ethanol should be from 18% to 12%. However, Food Ministry, Petroleum and Transport Ministry are batting for a reduction to 5%. The Council will also approve some of the key changes in the laws and rules of CGST, SGST and IGST. And not to forget, a discussion on to get ATF and natural gas under the ambit of GST. So there's a lot on the agenda, but let's see what finally goes through on 21st. Back to you.
Okay, all right. From one exclusive to another, the central government has prepared a provisional recapitalization plan for the PSU banks. Sources tell us that the government is planning to infuse around 14,000 crore rupees in PSU banks. Sapna Das joins us with all those details. Sapna, what are you picking up?
This is basically the second quarter plan for the current financial year. So government has reviewed the capital requirements, the regulatory capital requirements of almost all of the banks, among which 5 have been basically approved. Basically, Andhra Bank, Allahabad Bank, you also have Punjab National Bank, of course, that will get the highest amount of capital given the size of the bank. You also have IOB. But we are also, so all these 5 banks put together, the recapitalization amount or the immediate capital infusion amount turns out to be around 11,333 crores. But we are clearly given to understand that central bank could also be the 6th candidate. Basically on file, the quantum of 2,500 crores as fund infusion to help meet the bank its capital requirements is there on the file. But the government is yet to take a call on that. In the sense, a formal decision has yet to be taken. Simply because, the capital requirement of central bank would be slightly different. Basically, it's not for interest payments against, additional tier 1 bonds, but it's about some other earlier bonds. So that's the only call to be taken. But the government is very clear that as far as the regulatory capital requirement is concerned, any capital infusion that's required will be done. So we may be actually looking at 6 banks. Finally, the amount could go up to 13,836 crores. And this is for the second quarter of the current financial year. PNB would be the first off the block. 25th to 26th July, they have to meet their, CET and CRAR norms. So for that, this money will be required. And a very clear indication, and that's, I think, on expected lines, this will be a provisional recap because this has to be adjusted against the FY19 recap bond plan of around 65,000 crores.
Welcome back. Well, the ball is now in the government's court to take a final call on the LIC IDBI Bank deal. IDBI Bank's board met in Mumbai to consider LIC's proposal to hike its stake up to 51% in the bank. The bank is considering to bring LIC on board as a promoter. Ritu Singh joins in with details on the story that we've been tracking since a couple of weeks now. Ritu.
The IDBI Bank Board has taken on record a letter received from LIC yesterday stating its intent to acquire 51% stake in the company in the bank via a preferential allotment or an open offer or a combination of both. It said that it has now passed on that to the Government of India for their final approval before the board reconvenes to take that approval from the Government of India on record. And it is only after the government approval comes in will the deal then be sent to RBI and SEBI for their approvals. The management clarified in a press briefing that RBI's approval will be required as far as the fit and proper criteria is met. That is concerned is also the change in promoter status now that LIC is coming on board. Remember, IDBI Bank will now sit as a subsidiary of Life Insurance Corporation once the deal is completed. IRDA and LIC have already given their nods to the deal. Now, the other approvals are pending before the deal can be finalized. The management said there is no timeline indicated by the government as to when the deal would be closed. But they did, indicate that there will be nominee directors from LIC's board that will be brought on to the IDBI Bank management. But those names, according to IDBI Bank, will be decided by the board of LIC.
It's too premature for me to talk about it. But as I said, that they are proposing to take 51% controlling stake. That would mean that they will have a large role to play in the first. Of course, the thing is that there will be capital infusion which will help IDBI Bank in a significant way. Change in promoter status is one. Banking Regulations Act, 5%, more than 5% acquisition is another. Fit and proper is a third. So these are some of the things that RBI will probably see. Yes, I think one of the non-core assets that we were looking at was the IDBI federal deal, which will take some time for us to look at it again in the light of current developments.
Okay, well, let's move on now on to earnings. Cement major UltraTech Cement will be reporting Q1 numbers today. Nigel?
Well, we're going to be looking at the standalone numbers, Ekta, so just keep an eye out on that front. The basic numbers, top line, we're going to see a growth of around 30% approximately. The net profit, though, we'll see a degrowth of around 30%. That's telling you that there's a problem in the operational performance, and that's why, in fact, we're going to see some margin compression. Let's focus on it from the top itself. Now, why will the sales see a big bump up of around 30%? Sales volumes are going to be driven by higher, sales numbers going to be driven by higher volumes itself. Realizations have been more or less flattish. And in fact, they'll be consolidating even JP's assets in these numbers. So JP gives them higher exposure to the North India, and their pricing hasn't been great. So realizations flattish, top line led by volumes. But in terms of JP's assets, remember in the first quarter of last year, it was operating at around 15% capacity utilization. So that number has moved up to around 70 to around 80%. We're expecting them to move to up to around 80% approximately. The margins, though, they'll see a bit of a hit because realizations didn't move up, but input costs move up. Namely, petcoke prices have moved up by roughly around 7 to around 10%. Diesel prices as well have been moved up. And remember, JP Cements, their operating cost is nearly around 130 to around 200 rupees, depending on whether you're including the charge on limestone. So, since the operating cost is higher out there, that's what will hurt the operating margins, and that's why we're expecting a compression of roughly around 400 to around 500 basis points odd. Remember, in terms of petcoke usage as well, out of the total power mix, it's nearly around 70% approximately. So weaker operational performance, and the net profit will see a further degrowth because the interest costs as well as depreciation will be higher. They're going to be taking JP Cement's assets in their books. So obviously interest costs will go up as well as depreciation will go up as well. Expect these numbers second half of the trading session, maybe at around 2 to around 3 p.m. is when we'll be looking forward.
Okay. All right, Nigel. Well, we need to take a break now, but here's the weather report from SkyMet.
Hi, this is Fawzia. Welcome to the daily SkyMet weather report. A low pressure area is over East Madhya Pradesh, which will give heavy to very heavy rains over West Madhya Pradesh with moderate to heavy showers over East Rajasthan. Meanwhile, moderate rains may occur over Gujarat, Vidarbha and Chhattisgarh. Further ahead, the offshore trough along the west coast will give light to moderate rains with isolated heavy falls over coastal Karnataka and Kerala. Rains will remain moderate over Konkan and Goa. Mumbai rains will remain light while scattered showers are possible over coastal Andhra Pradesh. Moving on to eastern side, rains will reduce over Odisha, but scattered rains will continue over Gangetic West Bengal, parts of Jharkhand. Meanwhile, light to moderate rains are expected over northeastern states. Finally, up north, a western disturbance is over Jammu and Kashmir, which would give light to moderate rains over Jammu and Kashmir, Himachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand. Northern plains, including parts of North Rajasthan, Punjab, Haryana, Delhi and West Uttar Pradesh will see scattered rains. Let's look at the temperatures. Delhi would have a maximum of 36 degrees Celsius and minimum 28. The maximum temperature in Mumbai would be 29 and minimum temperature 25 degrees Celsius. Bengaluru would see a day temperature of 27 and night temperature of 20 degrees Celsius. That's all. Wrapping up. For more weather updates, stay tuned to SkyMetWeather.com.